So yeah, I mean, like what we've done is we're not precious about it. We will say this is what you get, and then if you want all of that, it costs this much. That's just how we approach things. So, if that's too much money, then there are things that we can take away. But if you want the full blown like top tier experience, like this is what it's going to cost you.
Yeah, and I mean some of the stuff you guys are doing, like with your agency, where you've got like you can get the DeLorean and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, some of that stuff is like next level. Like that's incredible to me, and like to be able to sell a package like that. I mean, I'd love for us to work up to a point like that.
Sure, but I mean, like full disclosure, I get inquiries for that very, very seldomly, and I'm not providing that service. That's me.
Yeah, you're outsourcing it, right?
Exactly. So while it looks like a big baller kind of move, but you can make those partnerships. You can do those things without big capital expenditures. You can kind of fake it till you make it.
I think it might have been Dan who was saying something about it in a previous episode about like elevating yourself.
Yeah.
Was that? I think it maybe even was like the last episode with.
Yeah, just kind of like again, this is a branding thing. You kind of put out the reputation that you want to have. So if you want to play the higher end things, you present yourself as higher end. You kind of project that onto yourself, and then that tends to come back to you that way. That's why I was saying like the whole wedding thing and the studio thing, like you have to kind of show people what that looks like.
Yeah, we've got some weddings coming up, and it'll be one of them is going to be super super luxed out and ritzy.
Yep, you should hire a video crew for that one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking was. At least get some video from it to show that, hey, like, we can clean up and keep the stage nice and not be, acting wild, and can be at a manageable volume with 86-year-olds and 3-year-olds in the crowd, kind of, yeah.
I would go ahead and reach out to the bridal party, and, because I'm assuming you guys are making a little extra on that one due to the nature of the event.
Yeah,
I would put a little bit of that margin into hiring a video team, and make sure you let the bride know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or, that's one way to do it. And I've not had success with this in the past, but it never hurts to ask. If you can get the contact of the video or photography person that's shooting their wedding, sometimes you can slip them a little bit, and they'll help you out with some footage. It's hard to make those kind of communications. Like, you'll probably get pictures, no doubt. You should always make sure you get contacts from photographers at those kinds of events.
Yeah. I like the idea of contacting them. I think that would be something I would like to, maybe try to pull the move of like at the wedding, be like, hey, here's a 50, you get some good shots of us.
Sure. I mean, and you can do that. But
it's probably more cost efficient to just ask first.
Well, it may be. No, I would say it's not more cost efficient. They'll probably charge you more money, but if they go in knowing that they're doing double duty, they'll do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really it's something I wouldn't have thought to do.
Yeah. So
that's a really good idea that I'm going to definitely follow through on that. Yep.
So, like I said, I think you're 90% of the way there. So.
Yeah, it's. I feel like we're kind of missing the. I feel like we don't really have a logo, and I saw your guys' MTV logo.
Yep.
And it's like that's like, it's iconic. But it's still original.
Yep.
And it's it's slick and smooth, and I'm sure it looks good on merchandise and cards and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like we don't have one of those. And I heard, I knew I was familiar with Fiverr,
yeah,
but I haven't really necessarily used it myself. And I was, what kind of experiences have you had with it as far as like outsourcing, like design work like that?
I think you have to be willing to roll the dice and maybe not get what you put in out of it to kind of get to a point. Most of those deals, like Fiverr is a bit it's a bit confusing and it's a bit misleading. There's very little work that can be gotten for $5, but it does. They provide kind of like a tiered service, but a lot of them do include like we'll present 3 different logos and with 2 revisions or whatever. So you could, for $50 to $100, get that work put in. But like I said, I think you guys kind of need to get you got to get your head around exactly what it is you're trying to project. Once you do that, you can then, you can express that or put it in writing and send it to somebody who can then interpret it into, a physical logo or branding material, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's, do you think it's really important for us to like have that logo that's maintained, that's always the same, or do you think it should just kind of be this organic living thing that kind of changes from season to season and time, from time to time?
I would say you need to be open to both ideas because depending on what you get back, like it may just be that logo. But like Members Only's logo has changed a lot. Mostly because I did it. And I'm, constantly learning new things and, trying to improve stuff and tweak things. But, it took probably 2 or 3 years to find the general logo that we use the most. But I don't necessarily see us changing it other than just kind of supplementing out different takes like the MTV logo or the Stranger Things logo kind of thing.
What are you guys going to name the 90s band?
Can't Hardly Wait. Like the movie.
Yeah, that's I was almost expecting some sort of clothing like Bugle Boy or something.
Nah, it wasn't. It just that one kind of popped in my head, and it wasn't taken by anything significant. So I was like, that seems like a good idea. Because the whole idea is you're trying to like sell it as like it's this fun, high energy. It's going to make you. It's going to make you think of like you were in like we want you to feel like you're in high school, and so why not use like the most iconic 90s movie about high school, besides
there's actually a fairly new band in my market, and I won't name drop them because I don't really know them, and hunt them on your own, but they're playing with this idea of they do 3 sets and they're doing a 70s, 80s, and then a 90s set with full costume changes in between sets.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of laundry.
And yeah, that's kind of what it seems like, a lot of work to me. But they don't seem to be taking off. And like these guys are coming from like half these guys were on a project before that was kind of like Steel Panther to an extent, you know what I mean? Like the 80s hair, like over the top, and they were super, super successful in our market. And then they kind of like, I don't know what happened. They went on a hiatus. They came back. They played a handful of shows. Now they've got bookings, but they're like 8 months out, and this new band is half of those guys. So, who knows what's going on with that. But I thought the idea of doing the 3 things, I was like, that's pretty different idea, especially throwing it back to the 70s. I feel like in 80s, 90s, and 2000s would maybe be a little more for the newer kind of market. Yeah,
what I was concerned with is that you're basically guaranteeing that only a third of the audience stays for any one of your sets. Because, with very few exceptions, people want to hear 70s, 80s, or 90s, not all of them. And you could probably get away with 80s and 90s, but they kind of have to be on brand between the two. They kind of have to be similar kinds of tunes. I mean, that's kind of what we're dealing with right now is coming up with a good mix of variety for the 90s things so that we can do a show as Members Only and Can't Hardly Wait on the same bill, which we're doing in September, and it feel, congruent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that'll probably flow pretty well together, especially with it just being 2 instead of 3.
Right.
And I'm assuming you guys will do one big giant set, take a pretty hefty break, and then do one big giant set.
Yep.
Yeah, it almost like it would be 2 different bands. Kind of.
Yeah, it's billed that way. So we will.
You ought to have the sound guy that you outsource, like switch your guys' equipment from take your quote unquote rig from one side of the stage to the other or something, so it looks like there's a switch between bands. Yeah, something like that could be pretty good gimmick, funny gimmick at least.
Yeah. But yeah, this is kind of a new development. We'll be kind of working through that. I've actually got tracks to do sometime soon, so I've got to figure that out. But
yeah, we have never really done the tracks much. We've talked about it.
You also have 6 guys,
and it's in mine.
You have a little bit less of a need for it. We're doing in 4 and 5 piece, and you've got a keyboard player that's like in the band. That's the thing that we have the hardest time finding. I've tried 3 different keyboard players. They've all flaked out or not worked, so I just stopped looking for one.
Oh yeah, he's totally 80s guy all the way too. Like that's like his bread and butter.
Of course,
that's what he loves. That's like his favorite music. He loves it.
Yeah.
Like.
But yeah, I mean that's what's cool is that you guys. I think what you guys could probably do in the season that you're in now, even in the midst of that, is that you can start doing more themed nights. So like you were saying, you're doing like an 80s night. You should be able to do that, and that might allow you to play better gigs more frequently because it's the same band, but it's a different. You're probably playing it to a different crowd and a different market at a different venue. So, or you might be able to bill yourself as like, hey, we can set up once and play Friday and Saturday, completely different sets. So there's kind of ways.
That's one that like that idea is like there's one band in our market that does Friday Saturdays and nobody else seems to do them. And I mean, we would be open to doing a Friday Saturday at the same place.
Sure.
So I don't know how to like maybe even like I guess I don't know how to get that idea even on the table and open and accepting to some of these owners.
But I think whenever they come around for hey, what about next dates? I was like, hey, let me just throw something out here, see what you think. We've got enough material. What do you say we do this and this for this amount of money, and just see what they say. They may say no, or they I think it depends on your cachet at the spot. So if you've been doing well, they'll be more open to it. And if you haven't done as well as they'd like, then, maybe not. But
yeah, and we're in this position where we've kind of just broke through in these places.
Sure.
And we've played there a few times, 1, 2, 3 times, once every couple months or so.
Yeah.
And so now it's, it's time to revisit and kind of renegotiate and re-up for next year, so to speak.
It's a good, you're in the right season to have those conversations. So
going back to a little bit of our earlier conversation with like kind of increasing that headroom as far as payment, that's something we've had to deal with is going from, basically getting paid nothing. And do you have any advice on how to like keep climbing that ladder, so to speak, or any ways to, basically get to the top of that pay echelon?
Well, I think if you're talking about public dates, you're only as good as your last show. So the way that you work your way up in these venues is you kind of start spreading out to different clubs, and you say, try and when you go and you play those dates at the club, try to see if you can get attendance and or bar sales, because those are the numbers that club owners want to hear. So what that would allow you to do is you could go into a bar and say, hey, we're interested in playing here. We played at this club, 6 weeks ago, and they had this many people, and, bar sales were like this. We could probably do the same for you. What do you think? Just kind of that kind of deal.
Yeah, we have a return date at this club that was kind of hard for us to get into. And it's kind of in a new scenario. Like it's definitely, we've almost maxed out their pay scale.
Yeah.
And basically their counter offer to me was, well, for, over every 60 heads, we'll kick in, chip in more money. So, I mean, I've got somebody coming with a counter to just rail it every time somebody pays at the door, bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
And it's, that one's kind of got me in this peculiar situation because, I want to book there next year, but it's underneath my bottom dollar. But it's there was a huge bar, live music bar right next to it. They like faced each other, and they're these huge music bars, and the one closed.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now I'm kind of torn of, well, do I, keep just trying to pack the place to get up to my bottom dollar, or do I just, keep kind of risk rolling the dice on that? That's kind of a tough call, like, because I it might have been you or Dan that had said, hit your bottom dollar and don't go below it.
Yeah. I think what I would start doing is start negotiating different terms. So if they can only pay you this much, as far as like a guarantee goes, you may want to say, okay, well, instead of, paying me X over, 60 people in the room, why don't you give us a cut of the bar? Those are terms that you can negotiate depending on, if they're game or not. And it's another one of those things where you're kind of assuming the risk, but if you swing big and it goes well, then you stand to make a lot of money. So, Jimmy, come back.
All right, I'm back.
Okay.
So I think at a certain point you kind of have to assume that risk.
Yep.
For lack of a better example, the Rolling Stones probably aren't getting many guarantees, but they know they're going to sell 100,000 tickets.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of these bands, it actually doesn't make sense to take guarantees because they'll lose money.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we are to that level yet, but I can definitely see that in the near future to where we're going to outpace what people can guarantee to us.
Yeah, I think you just need to kind of figure out what that looks like and if your guys are on board to take that kind of risk.
I mean, they for the most part, we have a pretty trusting relationship. They trust me to, make decisions for them, and I trust them to, not fight me tooth and nail if they don't agree with something. Do you have any advice for me on how to maybe get into selling tickets or ticketing a venue or anything like, kind of leveling, maybe just not leveling up, but maybe kind of sliding into that public forum instead of the bar forum? Yeah,
I mean, are there venues around you that do that kind of those kinds of nights?
I mean, there are some theaters. I don't think they have done those type of nights, and there is a live music venue that has opened that they just keep having basically, like hardcore and bands come in, but it's not that kind of venue. They rent it out as a wedding hall.
Sure.
And, they use it like a hall like that, but they have this big, nice stage. And I had thought about maybe approaching them with trying to do maybe like a ticketed event. We could do like an adult prom or something.
Yeah.
One of the event, how we were talking about doing like a specific, a little more themed night, and maybe trying to take an idea like that to them as well, to maybe like get the ball rolling on a ticketed event or something, it'd be like, hey, like, would you guys be interested in this? I feel like that's how in this business I've had to do everything, is just kind of make that first call and kind of wing it,
Yeah, I would say put some thought around what it is exactly you want to do, and then reach out to the venue and see what renting that space out looks like. Because you're gonna have to crunch some serious numbers to figure out if the juice is worth the squeeze on throwing an event like that. I remember this was a while ago in another group. Talking to a guy who was putting on a lot of these. They were putting on their own events at like hotel ballrooms and things like that, and they provide the production and the catering and the making a deal with the hotel and the rooms and stuff. And they looked like a blast, but I knew that they were doing all the work. And I was like, "Hey man, what are you walking away with every time you do one of these?" And he told me a number that like I wouldn't have taken. Like, they were spending all of this money and they were not making hardly, they probably weren't even making like an eighth of what they were spending.
And it's like, what's the end game? How is that? I mean, if that were me in that kind of situation, like, what would I be using that to propel me towards to eventually hit that payday? I guess kind of is right. How I would view that.
Yeah, there was no payoff. I don't know what they could have swung more for other than charging more for admission. But yeah, it was just like, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze to me. Now for them though, in their market, it's a big event and it gave them a lot of cachet. So there is that, and it does show potential clients that how to logistically put something on, and that might be the move, is that they fork all this money out.
So I mean, it's almost kind of like there's this band in our neck of the woods. They're like a 50s, 60s cover band, just do 50s and 60s. And honestly, those guys, the one guitar player is, like an executive at Sweetwater. So, they're really good. They're really good, and they have been for a long time. They only probably play around here like 4 times a year, but they do like a cruise every other year, like a 14-day cruise.
Yeah.
And so I imagine it would be similar to kind of like a destination like that.
Yeah.
Is kind of what they're doing, only they're doing it like at a local hotel, kind of.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the idea. They're just they're making sure they're literally covering everything. For a lot of these things like that we do, somebody else is putting the event on and they're just hiring us. They're kind of cutting that out. They're actually doing all the work themselves. I just don't, that's kind of a hard sell for me.
Yeah. More work for less money. Yeah.
Not a fan.
It's because, we've definitely tossed the idea around of trying to do a destination kind of gig or set of gigs, like come party with us on this beach 1,000 miles from home for spring break or something.
Sure.
I have some contacts, that could probably help us out in Florida, but it's one of those where it's like, I don't know. Is that like, yeah, it's kind of like it. That's a lot of work for who knows if any, are we only going to get 5 people to go with us?
Well, yeah, if you pull it off, it could be epic, but if you don't, you could, lose so much money. Or your reputation, or any other number of things. So, and I think that's something that's a little further down the line. I know bands that are very, very far along that probably couldn't pull that just yet. So, it's something to strive for, no doubt. If you can be the party legends of that area, that's worth something. So,
yeah. How are your experiences branching out into other markets?
It's been challenging because just like anything else, it's hard to show people that you've got something going on when they're not kind of fluent in your market. And the other thing that we deal with is that for where we are, there is a big touring circuit. So for us to go into a new market as an 80s band, we would, we would approach a venue and like, yeah, we've got 3 of them already. Because they're kind of like what you were saying, these guys that have been around forever that have kind of made those deals. The way that we've kind of found our way around that is by doing private events. Because once you do private events, they kind of begat more private events. And once you kind of get going there, it makes things a bit easier. But you do have to be patient. There's a long game that just it's there, with the exception of those crazy viral blowouts where like all of a sudden like you're huge overnight. Those aren't what you are really aiming for, and what you want to try to do is just do that consistent, steady growth year over year. And you're not really going to hit your stride until year 4, year 5, year 6, because you kind of have to just exist a while just so people know who you are. That just takes a while.
There is a band in our area that on their Facebook, they're at like 10,000 likes, but they're like 20 years old, and it's like they get every gig that they swing at, as far as like festival gigs and stuff like that.
Sure.
And yeah, we just can't compete with them, even though musicianship wise we're every bit of that level, if not even a little bit more energetic and better at this point.
Right. But
it's just like they have just this like legion of doom following them, like everywhere that they go. It's just this massive wave, and it's like, the only way they've been able to accumulate that is they've been hitting this grind for like 20 years. And we've definitely run into that. And there's like a younger band in our market that it's like frustrating to see them go from like that 200, 300 fan level to like they're really gaining momentum,
Yeah.
And they got this opportunity that we kind of, an opportunity above both of our levels that we would have, killed to have, that they kind of just got lucked out and got into. And it's kind of, it's one of those like that jealousy thing where you're like, man, like those guys are really good for me and they're good for my market, and like having them doing a similar thing to us is only good for both of us. But like, man, like that's, it's like, why can't that be us that's popping off right now, even though we're already up a level? So it's like, it's just getting, it's like that weird, like I want every opportunity, but you can't have every opportunity.
Yep.
And so we're kind of looking at maybe trying to like branch out to some of the markets around us to escape some of these big, massive bands that we just can't get out from under. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming those bands also exist in those other markets.
They do, for sure. And typically when you do go out into new markets and you're just kind of getting started, you're gonna start at the bottom. If you're from a bigger city and you're kind of going out, you might get a little more cachet and you might be able to negotiate better terms, and people will come and see you just because you're from out of town. But more times than not, you're kind of starting off at square one. Like I said, man, I think for a lot of these things, I think the branding is the missing component, and once you kind of get that, it'll grease those wheels. I really think so.
Yeah, it's like I didn't know how like breaking out of our market, if it would be starting at the bottom or if any of the clout we had built up would maybe travel with us to where they would be like, oh yeah, these guys seem pretty legit.
You got to have numbers. You got to have a track record that you can prove to those venues. So, make sure that you're keeping tabs on that kind of stuff, because when you do that, it's easier to sell stuff. I can go to any place in town and say, I played this venue 6 weeks ago. We sold 200 tickets at $10 to $25 a piece. Like that's a language that promoters can understand.
Yeah. Just have to show them how profitable I can make them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point, is that we are both money-making ventures. Let us partner together so that we can all make money together. That's what they're looking for. They don't care if you're good. They don't care if you look cool. They don't care, honestly, what you do. If you look professional, have a track record, and, proven sales, you're going to be, it's going to be easier to make those negotiations happen. So.
Yeah, that's, I feel like there's never any instant gratification when it comes to booking anymore. It's all grind.
Well, it's about putting the work in every day. Little bits of work that kind of, it's like a snowball. You put the work in, and, over time it kind of accumulates. We've been around for almost a little over 5 years, maybe, kind of around that time. And we're still, we have to chase down leads just like everybody else. Like people come to us, which is cool, but it's not, we're not drowning in it quite yet. And we're also not trying to do that kind of thing. But we're still grinding. If we wanted to play in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is, a little over 2 hours from here, like we'd be playing some nowhere spot.
Yeah, it's it's because Muncie's about not even quite halfway to Indy for us, and like that's a college town, and we could probably do pretty well in we do well in the college market already, and it's a pretty small market for us in this particular area. So we could realistically go an hour south and be in this not huge college town, but college town nonetheless.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't know how to I guess you can't really swing your weight down there. So I guess it makes more sense that it's essentially starting from the bottom. Maybe not quite the bottom,
not necessarily, because if you're wanting to do like frat parties or that would be where the money would be frat parties at this point. But what you would need to do is you would need to do some Google do some research, find out who the social chairs are. Again, you still have the promo material is really where it's at. You're like, hey, this is what we do. We can do X, Y, and Z. This is how much we cost. We'd love to work with you.
Do sororities do parties like that?
If they have houses and they can, for risk management, I feel like I don't know if they can necessarily do that. But
that's fair.
Sorority girls go to frat parties.
I was going to say, we definitely have aimed our demo at the 35 and under female demographic.
Trust me, dudes in frats want that too.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's been a while since I was that age, but yeah, you make a very, very good point with they definitely want the place packed with chicks.
Yeah, so if you can do that, then more power to both of you. But yeah, I think the college market's good because, again, talking about a long game. So right now you're playing at their frat party, but over time, you're
going to be playing at their corporate party.
Well, also, you're going to be playing at their weddings, which, you kind of lay that foundation. So that's the thing that you need to realize, that when you start getting into the private market, you're not playing this gig for tonight. You're playing this gig for 6 months to 2 years down the road. Because the people who are in this crowd, they don't need you right now. They're having a good time and they enjoy it. But 6 months, 2 years down the road, they might need a band, and that's what comes back to you. It's not necessarily the show you're playing that night. It's the people that are at that show that need a band later on.
Yeah, I mean, that, especially in the college market. I mean, isn't that kind of how frats work anyway? You're just kind of involving yourself on the outside of it to an extent. Yeah,
to a degree, but it just kind of, it's private work begats more private work, and it just kind of continues to build like that. More so, but and a lot of times, the public stuff does that as well. It's just, it depends on your clientele.
Did you guys start off in the corporate sector?
Yes.
Or did you kind of had some of those contacts already?
Yeah, I mean, what ended up happening with us is that we started off, there was a version of this that was a club band, and it just wasn't jiving. It wasn't really, somebody else was in charge of it, and I didn't like the direction. So I reached out to some people and made some contacts. But like the first gig the first wedding we booked was from a club date that we played. But like we plugged in with an agency that had a need for private events, and so we just started kind of playing that. But we landed in that world as a corporate band, not as a bar band trying to clean up our act.
Yeah.
I guess. So we had just approached it differently.
Speaking of the agency, do you think that's a viable way to use an agency to, like, say, break into another market?
It's a way of kind of, again, putting on airs. So you can create a website with an email address and put the band under that umbrella, and that can give you kind of project you a bit further out, and it does kind of establish you in a way, but I don't know if it's absolutely necessary to get there, because a lot of times people can smell that stuff. If you don't know what you're talking about, people that kind of email like, "Oh, I'm the manager for so-and-so," you can see through that pretty easily.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that people need to realize, is that if you're dealing with like booking agents at venues, like they can weed out BS pretty quickly. So if you can play the game and you can talk it up, it might be advantageous for you. But I'm not doing a whole lot of cold calling from that banner. I'm more looking to solicit inquiries and generate leads from
off
the site
that banner
itself. Yeah.
Have you ever worked with a booking agent in a cover band aspect before?
Yes.
Would you say the experience was one that was worth it?
Management and agencies only make a percentage off of what they sell. And if they don't know how to sell you, you won't work with them.
That seems fair, I guess. I mean, from your experiences with it, did they propel you anywhere that you were going, or was it kind of status quo of what you were already kind of accomplishing on your own, or able to accomplish on your own?
I would say that if it did, I wouldn't have started my own.
That's fair.
That was kind of the point. Was like we still have non-exclusive deals with a couple of agencies, but they're not pulling in a majority of our work.
Yeah, it's occasional or a fill-in or something like that. For you, a fill-in, like you guys are using it to like supplement your schedule, because it's Correct. Like, oh, hey, we've got this open spot. Okay. Yeah, because we've definitely tossed around the idea of maybe inquiring about an agent to be able to maybe book us somewhere like Grand Rapids where they can get us some stuff like that.
Yeah, you should definitely inquire. I just wouldn't necessarily hang your hat on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could ever let go of the control.
I don't know, man. If you've got somebody that's telling you you've got $24,000 gigs lined up, it gets pretty easy.
Well, yeah, that would I would be like, yes, sir. I mean, where do I need to be?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, you guys billing yourselves as a wedding band, you've got kind of like that cool kind of hipster slick kind of look. And once you have the material behind it to sell it, I think you'll be locked for that kind of work. And you could kind of get into that deal where you're making $2,000 to $5,000 every weekend, during wedding season. That's totally within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's such a slippery slope though, because man, like some of the bar gigs are, we played one and it was like, man, that was like a real rock concert. Like the energy was, and it's like. It's just, it tears at my heart a little bit that like you have to give up some of one to like be able to make some money and survive at doing it.
Yeah, but one doesn't necessarily negate the other. Like you can play club dates and play weddings. There's nothing stopping you. But you have to be willing to trade off the fun that you're going to have at a public date for the money that you would have made at a private date. And don't get me wrong, private dates can be total slogs because, sometimes you're playing to a completely indifferent room, and that paycheck is the only thing that's giving you any sort of, oomph on stage. But I think there's a healthy medium between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could ever swing 100% to the corporate side, just because I think the sparkle of it would we would need that jump every once in a while to be like, oh yeah, like this is what the Rolling Stones feel like.
I don't know, man. Weddings can get pretty lit.
The weddings that we have done to this point, the weddings have been pretty fun. But I recently went to a wedding that was pretty ritzy, and like there's no way we could have like please the whole entire crowd, you know what I mean? Like, or even come close. Like it was this.
Hey man, that's not your job at a wedding. Your job is to make the bride happy.
The bride happy.
Don't you worry about grandma. If grandma is going to be mad at somebody, she can be mad at the bride. I don't take requests from anybody. I don't take any feedback from anybody but the lady in the white dress, because if she's not having a good time, nobody's having a good time. So don't sweat that. That's stuff you don't need to worry about. If the bride loves you, you're golden.
Have you noticed as an 80s band, has that affected the age of like your wedding consumers?
Yeah. I mean, we are we're kind of in the second wedding echelon a lot.
I would kind of assume that it would be like people that wanted that music kind of as a nostalgic effect for them.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a themed kind of deal, but like it's what we're dealing with is people in their mid to late 30s or 40s that are getting married for the first time or maybe their second time. But we also have the imprint that does the top 40 thing, and so we've done normal weddings.
Okay. See, I didn't know you guys had a regular imprint. I mean, I kind of figured you would. I kind of figured you at least personally had another project that could cover that, but I didn't realize it was kind of all under the same umbrella. But I guess with your agency, everything's kind of under your umbrella now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have. I found High Class Party Band was not taken, so that's what I decided on. It was like, it doesn't really tell you anything, but it also requires no imagination. You hear High Class Party Band, those are like the 4 words you need to hear if you want to have a band at your wedding. So that seemed to work.
Yeah, the idea of having the single kind of purpose band, like having an 80s band, 90s band, country, classic country band. I mean, I feel like that is really a route that we could go, but we've also kind of flirted with like original music. And so I feel like it'd be kind of maybe hard to discard the band, the brand of REKT, but I feel like maybe it could be, we could do like, REKT country or maybe some play
come on,
like
man.
that.
No, it's Dixie REKT.
Dixie REKT, yeah. We actually had an idea. We approached this brewery that's making some beer for bands. We were like, dude, do a Dixie REKT Rebel Ale for us.
Hell yeah.
And they were like, oh, normally a band plays for free for that. And we were like, keep your beer.
Yeah, bye.
Like, it was a smaller one, and it's like we went after the big boy in our neighborhood because, some of us work for them. And we were pushing them pretty hard, and they're just kind of like, well, hurdy-hur.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, come on, man. We've worked for you forever. Do it.
Yeah, but I said, I think what you need to do is don't be afraid to try stuff. Just get on the horn, like send emails out, make phone calls, like just see, because you do have you've got a product to push. Like it's not like if you asked for something and got it, like you wouldn't be able to deliver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes bands can get in trouble because they overpromise, but they don't have what they need. They don't have
the goods.
And when we were first getting started, there were definitely a couple of situations where I did that and we weren't prepared, and that does affect you negatively if you can't pull it off. But I don't think you're not in that boat. I think you guys are good.
I mean, we've definitely, I have done that to us, where I've put like the Zepp Fest, the one guy in the band, the bass player, he was like, I don't think we should be doing gigs that aren't necessarily like who we are. And I was like, but who we are is we can do you never know what to expect. We can do anything.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, there's an angle to that for sure. But I think you guys are both right. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I definitely saw the point that he made, because it's like, we didn't do any Led Zeppelin for this beforehand.
Right.
I mean, we've literally learned like 11 Led Zeppelin songs to do this. And how many of them are going to survive?
Right.
And make it into an actual set list where we're not like paying homage to Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
So it's, I kind of understood it from there, but like the 80s thing and like how you guys, you started the Fanny Pack Friday, and like that's still a reoccurring thing, right?
Well, it was, but like that was kind of the impetus of doing the 90s imprint, was because
that was like the beginning of that then.
Yeah, because people don't want to see an 80s band do 90s. Like we had a really hard time with that second one getting people out, because they didn't get, like, it was too confusing for an 80s band to do a 90s night.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because for us, like if we did a 90s night, nobody would think anything of it.
Right.
The 80s night we're doing, actually, the original idea I had pitched was a boy band tribute.
Now, those are working right now for a lot of spots, but
I feel like that's going to crush it with that under 30 female demographic.
For sure.
Especially because we have 3 vocalists. I thought, I was like, oh, that could be great. But then they kind of backtracked. We're like, well, what do you think about maybe doing an 80s? That might fit our demographic a little better. And I was like, I don't think it will, but hey, we love the 80s.
Nah, man, an 80s night, it's an easy sell for most spots. So I think you'll be fine. But I think each of those has legs. I think it's just a matter of just pitching it, branding it, and shipping it out the right way. But those are all moves that you can make that, again, just kind of build your cachet. And it kind of, once you have your track record, you're like, we've done this and it worked. We did this and it worked. We did this and it worked. Like that's what's going to propel you.
How are some ways that you do you just track this information in a log, or how are you collecting this information to be able to present it to potential clients?
Most of the time it's just kind of putting it in an email or just mentioning it. For us, our main thing is like ticket sales and past clients. So that's all I really need to keep.
So you kind of just have a running list of places that you play.
Yep.
And just kind of basically every gig get a number of what your attendance was at.
Yep.
I guess for private gigs, you probably can't really use Facebook like that, can you?
You can. It's just a different approach. Like we still post stuff about private events. We do want to share what we've got going on, even if people can't go to them or see.
Yeah, I was going to say initially we did not post them, but we have started to, because then it shows people that we are still busy, and it shows people that we're available for basically hired guns.
Exactly. That's what you want. You want to show people both of those things. Again, you're projecting. So we're playing another private event. Another private event's coming up. So people are like, oh, this is the band that plays private events. So yeah, you do want to at least acknowledge them. You don't necessarily have to, you're not going to go live on a corporate event. Or a wedding. It's kind of bad taste, but you can still take pictures. You can still post stuff. Make sure that you are capturing everything. There's no such thing as too much content. Just make sure that you're curating.
One of the things that we've noticed some other bands in our area that have, I don't know if they're copying what we were doing or if they have, naturally come up with the idea. But, we always try to do some sort of intro video the day of a gig, where we introduce it, we walk around the place. And I know some other bands do that, but we've done like some parodies in them, like fake commercials and some stuff like that. And one of them that we just did was for White Claw. And, we've noticed some bands in our area that have like started doing this. And, we started doing that in the beginning just to generate content, just to have posts on our page, because we were like, anything we can get up there, if anybody sees it, hey, if they like it, they'll watch it.
Yep. Totally. Yeah.
That was just all in the name of content. And it's hard with pictures because it's hard to post a picture every day.
Well, that's one of those things where you take 100 pictures. And then
that's what I mean. Like having just like that back catalog, it's after you get through like 8 or 9 days, you like all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I haven't done that in 5.
Right, but then you also start posting stuff that's not necessarily band related, but like is on brand, just to kind of keep engagement up. There's lots of ways to do that.
Yeah, I had looked into some numbers about like social media traffic.
Yep.
And so like I know typically for us, like we're trying to post like Wednesdays and Thursdays like after 3 p.m. and Fridays and Saturdays afternoon, and Sunday it's basically a free-for-all anytime that you can.
Sure.
And that was just from a study that we saw about how people use Facebook and Instagram and like when their peak times are. And so then instead of trying to generate content every day, it was just trying to generate content at opportune moments of high traffic.
Yep. And then you also need to kind of go into social media and interact, liking posts and, commenting on stuff. You just have to put the work in. Again, it's a slog, man. It's little investments over time accumulating into this whole thing. So,
for like your guys' ticketed events,
yep.
Do you pay for Facebook advertising?
We have previously, but the venue already budgets money for that, so we haven't done it previously in the past couple of times. But if I think it'll make a difference, I'll throw money on it.
Have you played with seeing if it actually works or not before?
I mean, your numbers get up, and there's not really a great way to quantify it. All I know is that we've done it and had good nights. So, for what that's worth. And you do get reach, for sure.
Part of why I was asking is we had actually broken out of town and we're playing in Toledo. So we ponied up to pay for some advertising. And I mean, it was a pretty slow night there. That is what it is. It happens to everybody.
Yep.
And we had played there before, just blind with no advertising, and it definitely was way busier the night there was no advertising. And I felt like the advertising really didn't bring anyone in for us.
Yeah,
it didn't even really get that much interest online. It just said kind of doubled the amount of people that said they were going on Facebook.
I don't think that's enough data to really like make a judgment.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know if you had played with it more to maybe be able to, say, hey, yeah, that's it's kind of hit or miss, or it works sometimes. I just didn't know kind of what your experiences were with using it like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent money and gotten returns kind of historically. Things have moved always when we have put money down, but I don't think it's quantifiable in that sense, especially without doing it all the time. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. You don't want to promote too much, and there's so many factors that kind of affect whether you get better turnout or not. And it is one of those factors, but it's just not enough. I mean, you want to talk about organic reach versus paid reach, whatever. Like, you found me on like the smallest community
on
Reddit. So, but it was just because that seemed like a good channel to give to people. So there is no magic bullet for sure. Could it benefit you? Yes. Will it benefit you directly? I'm not sure.
Do you think it is more beneficial to say advertise, just like, hey, like a poster or something? It's like now accepting bookings for 2020. Do you think maybe there would be more payoff in advertising something like that, or even just kind of pushing for more likes, just a, hey, we exist, like this is what we do, we're available for booking, or do you think it's worth it, or do you think the event promotion is like where it's at?
I've done all three, and to be perfectly honest with you, the only ones that I feel like have really been worth it is 4 events. Because if you're paying to get more likes, then you're actually kind of screwing yourself, because the more likes
you're
you
getting
get,
out of market likes.
Well, not even that. You're paying to reach those people. So you're paying Facebook to give you more likes so that they can charge you more to reach them later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of you're paying Facebook twice basically in that sense. We've done the now booking ones, and I will say that it has drawn traffic to the website, but I don't know if it necessarily we got the conversions that we were looking for out of that.
Yeah, I mean we have a karaoke DJ that's pretty friendly with our band. That he has a production company, and he does a lot of weddings, and he's kind of helped us in the wedding circuit. And he if people are looking for a band, he'll send them our way, and if we're out of people's price range, we'll kind of send them his way. We have a symbiotic relationship.
Cool.
And he gets quite a bit of booking from Facebook, but I don't know any bands that have done it with any kind of real success.
It can be done. It's a matter of positioning yourself the right way.
But he's got the big fancy ad that said tells you what services basically he's advertising it like any other business, like a White Pages ad kind of almost. Yeah. And I just I don't know how something like that would work for a band, or if you have any experience with it, or if you know of anybody that's ever done it successfully or unsuccessfully.
If you can put real money into it, and with some sort of like invitation where you can put them into some kind of sales funnel, and you've got real money to put into it, like I'm talking like, you take $3,000 and you throw it at that problem over the course of a couple of months. I think you would get your money back. I think the real challenge is whether or not you have the ability to throw that kind of money at a situation like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like suing, McDonald's or something. Like they've just got endless money and lawyers to throw at it, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, if you do a paid ad that has a book now option and it's optimized for what it is you're trying to do, and you can put enough, like you're basically paying for the access. And so if you can put $3,000 on it, that's way more eyeballs. And they may not necessarily like your band, but they may hit your book now, and you may be able to get them in that sales funnel down the line. But typically, it's one of those things where it can help you level up, but you have to have the capital out front to fund it.
Yeah, the DJ guy, I think he told me he has like a $300 a month budget is what he pumps into his.
Yeah, and something
around there.
He's probably getting that money back every single month. 10.
Yeah, he told me that it was he was like, I will run it till I no longer do this.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. If you've got the budget and you can afford it, it will probably turn around on you. You'll get more work.
Well, because that's another thing we're running into with booking is it's just like it's the people turnover, and it's hard to keep your thumb on who's actually doing the booking, and it's who am I even reaching out to, because I've had almost no success reaching out to the clubs.
Yeah.
It's always having to find out who the purchaser is, and like contacting them individually is how I've had most of my successes with it, at least.
That's how it works. It's all about building relationships, man. You're gonna have to just put a name to a face and shake some babies and do the thing, man.
Yeah.
Shoot, man, this conversation was almost better than the episode.
I guess I must have got a little more comfortable. You told me we weren't recording anymore, right. And I was like, oh yeah, relax now.
Well, I would say, at least in this capacity, like I don't want to put out an episode of the podcast where it's just you asking us questions. That feels a little glad-handed and narcissistic. I really wanted the focus to be on you guys, but in the fact that we're just sitting here talking, like good stuff's been coming out. So what I'll probably do is I'll put this up on YouTube and do it like a behind the pod. It's kind of like a bonus episode.
I was gonna say, I mean, if you wanted to cut and edit it in pieces and places that you're more than welcome to do that.
I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, I feel that.
No, I'm literally going to put this whole unedited hot mess up on YouTube and just bill it as a bonus feature.
Yeah, I'm just trying to learn from, like you're in a bit, out of you and Dan, you're in the bigger market. So I like to, it's nice to see like how your guys' market operates and like what you're doing to survive in your market and thrive in your market. And, there are similarities between my band and your band, and there are similarities between my band and Dan's band. Totally. And, I feel like we're kind of like treading the water in between the two of them. So I do really enjoy the podcast.
Awesome.
So it's really fun to get to be on something that I've listened to and have kind of seemed kind of from the beginning. Definitely more of a lurker than a contributor, but
not anymore, dude. You're in it.
Yeah,
you're a celebrity. You're a podcast celebrity, which is
now now Seth and I'll have to be real active in the groups.
Yep. Well, and then we can be like, check it out. Here he is.
See what? Yeah, here they are.
What does Jimmy have to say about this? I don't know if you saw, I was in the group, I was giving Ben crap about that. That somebody, like I acknowledge, he jumped in on a conversation, like, you guys, this is the Ben.
Yeah, I really liked the episode with Mike. That was, I think, 62.
Yeah.
That was, I like a lot of how they have branded their band. And like,
100%.
They like helped that episode really helped me like feel better about there's no ceiling to this. Like this can go as high as it can go,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was a really cool. I liked the interview episode. That was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I'm liking the interview episodes. I really honestly love most of the episodes.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be more interviews in the future. I think, we can rattle on about stuff, but sometimes we need an outside ear for some stuff. So it's beneficial for all of us to hear from other people in the world. So
yeah, it's been a big help for us, and because we basically, I feel like the band might have started a little bit after the podcast, even maybe a little before, but. Mm-hmm. And so, it's from the very beginning, I've been leaning on you guys as a resource. So,
awesome.
Keep it up. Thanks, guys.
Happy to do it, man. Have yourself a wonderful evening.
Don't forget your Chalvette plug in there, too,
Yeah, I got to get those from Dan to put it out.
Oh, did you guys pre-record them?
Well, at this point, we've done them 3 or 4 times, so there's no point in, like, doing it during the actual, like, recording.
Yeah, just tagging it on the front.
Absolutely. All right, man.
All right, yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for everything, and hopefully, I'm on top of the world when you guys check back with me.
Sounds good, man. Talk soon.
All right, yep, thank you very much.
Bye.